No doubt a lot of you recently watched that video from OFR, Ohio Fish Rescue, and boy, oh boy, was that a tearjerker. And I started thinking, I mean, what would bring a man like Big Rich to tears regarding a fish? I mean, you can certainly understand it, like with a dog or a horse or some kind of a large animal like that, but a fish, you know, and he was obviously emotionally overwhelmed and distraught, and I totally get it. Keeping a big fish, especially raising a big fish, and watching them grow, and the amount of time and effort, investment, cost. I mean, you're all in emotionally on something like that, and it's real, very, very different. You know, you have a big fish that looks you in the eye, that greets you and follows you around, that you can hand feed. In Rich's case, get in the actual pool that he has and plays, you know, with the fish, hand feeds it in the water with the fish. I mean, that creates a bond, a real strong bond. And there's so many moving parts and factors involved in keeping large fish, from the obvious ones like the size of equipment that you're going to need. I mean, heating a 100-gallon or a 300-gallon tank is very different from heating a 29. Water changes. I mean, a water change on my African cichlid tank, I mean, that's a minimum of 100 gallons as opposed to, let's say, 20 gallons for a 55, you know, or just a few gallons on a 29. So cost, time, effort, what you spend on food, what you spend on water, what you spend on utilities. I mean, to filter an aquarium large enough to hold a big fish, you need a lot of equipment. You need powerful equipment that's consuming a lot of electricity, and so you're all in. It's a big investment that some folks don't think about when they pick up that Oscar or that you know, red-tailed catfish. So, but the thing that is seldom talked about and considered in those kinds of scenarios are the emotional connection. And there's going to be an emotional connection. You're going to have an emotional connection with a large fish. I mean, there's just no way around it. And I'm not knocking small fish. I'm not saying you should love your small fish any less, but when a little ember or a little neon tetra dies, especially if you have a big school of them, I mean, in some cases you might not even notice. Or if you're father fish, you're just going to push it into the substrate and turn them into fertilizer. You can't do that with with an Oscar or an Arapina or something like that. I mean, you practically have to have a funeral service. You know, in the case of Big Rich, I mean, they did sort of a very preliminary, superficial autopsy and discovered that large fish that passed away had eaten a pleco that had gotten stuck in its throat and more or less just kind of choked him out. You know, just kind of killed him off. I get it. I mean, you know, you get a pleco on a net, they're almost impossible to remove. I mean, those spines. So I get it. I understand what happened. And tragic. One of those things like, okay, well, when I've got large Arapina, I can't keep anything that'll fit in its mouth that could be dangerous, and that would be a pleco, right? So talk about a hard lesson. I mean, that fish was over 6 feet long, hundreds of pounds, and was, I think I speak accurately when I say that fish was his friend. That was his buddy. And so losing a fish like that was emotionally devastating. And Rich, you know, we love you and we love what you guys do over there. So that was really, as my daughter likes to say, that one hit you in the feels. You know, it was just a real tearjerker. And you can check out the video. I'll put a link below. it's a bit sad. I mean, they ended on a positive note, but it's get ready. It's emotional. And at any rate, if you're going to get into small fish, planted tanks, things of that, realize that the emotional investment is not going to be quite as heavy. But if you're going to get into big fish, realize that you are going to have an emotional investment, and that emotional investment can be pretty substantial sometimes. And just like with dogs and horses and other animals, these fish, for whatever reason, do not last as long as we do, and so you are going to have to deal with its passing at some point. And so just something to keep in mind, apart from the cost, the footprint of the aquarium, the equipment needed, all that sort of stuff, the amount of maintenance and time spent on maintenance, all that, but also keep in mind that you're going to have an emotional investment involved in keeping any kind of a fish that can stare you down. And ask anyone who's had a big fish that became a buddy and then passed away, and it's not easy. Okay, my friends, so there's an angle to think of when you're picking your fish, and one that probably isn't too considered when you go out there and buy that baby Oscar and take him home. You don't think that's going to become an emotional bond, but it does. And there you have it. Thank you for tuning in, my friends, and I'll see you at the next one. All right, you take care. Bye-bye.